Welcome inside another edition of 101 Sports, where today we'll be discussing,
Can the Lakers get back to the finals?
are the Tennessee Vols for real?
And are the Mets just that bad?
All that and more, and it all starts right now. Welcome inside another edition of 101 Sports. Let's get things started off with the quick hitters. And Chase, the Panthers right now, they're just blowing it up. They got to be.
It's a sinking ship, and what the Panthers have been trying to do for many years is just kind of patch things up. But now with the firing of Matt Rule, $40 million left on his contract still, they have to just start to blow things up, and I think that's the only way they can get out of this sort of hangover phase after the Cam Newton era.
I mean, basically, if you're looking at this, the Panthers have been trying to patch things up, but, they're a sinking ship. They are the Titanic, but they've been trying to patch it up with a Band-Aid. Mm-hmm. And so now they're just, completely ripping it off, let the ship sink. And so, again, Matt Rule's gone. Robbie Anderson's gone. Do you think, Baker Mayfield, is he gone? Is McCaffrey gone? Brian Burns, are they all gone?
No, you want to get rid of players that might help you win a couple games. So I think Baker Mayfield is safe. Christian McCaffrey, on the other hand, DJ Moore, Brian Burns, young guys that can help teams that are right on the edge of competing for a Super Bowl, help them get over the edge. So I think, if anything, those are the three names to be on the lookout for. I think the biggest name that is going to be traded is Christian McCaffrey, of course, due to the contract and due to the injury history.
So if you're a GM, what are you giving up for Christian McCaffrey? Because, again, he has desirable assets. He's great out of the backfield. He can get you 1,000 yards rushing. What are you giving up if you're a GM?
I think just because based off the contract and based off the injury history, I think you can't give up more than a second just based off of pure talent. The guy's amazing when fully healthy. The problem is, can he stay healthy and push that team over the edge when it gets into January? But I'd say a second, maybe a later round pick. With the way teams value running backs nowadays, I don't think you're getting more than a second rounder for Christian McCaffrey.
So basically what you're saying the Panthers have done is, you remember that clip where, he's going in and, Cam Newton, it's the Super Bowl, Von Miller strip sacks him?
Oh, I remember the one.
And it looks like he's about to dive in and then just doesn't go in. That's what they've been doing with this rebuild, so now it's time to, fully dive in.
Just a lot of patchwork, especially at the quarterback position, and now they have to put themselves in the position to get one of these quarterbacks in next year's draft.
Hey, they have Sam Darnold. But speaking of terrible, NFL officiating. I mean, we had the debacle a few years ago where we had pass interference was being able to be replayed, but now people want roughing the passer replayed. Do you think we might see something like that?
I think a lot of fans want that, and of course I'm in that boat where I would love to see things like that replayed. I've been saying for years something the XFL did that the NFL should do is a sky judge, and they just haven't moved forward with the officiating, it feels like. But I don't think making it reviewable, given how making pass interference reviewable is the right way to go. But something has to change with officiating, because it feels like every year there's a new rule that either the officials crack down upon or just is big with the fans as a problem. And this year it's roughing the passer.
And I feel like the NFL it got hit twice in 1 week, no pun intended, because it was the hit on Tom Brady by Grady Jarrett and that hit on Sunday Night Football on Derek Carr, where you have in basically the same day two calls that the fans are not going to agree with. And so that's, there's even more pressure now of saying, okay, hey, we need some changes.
And it's not even just calls that the fans won't agree on. It's calls that are deciding games. And I think that's where fans really have a problem with roughing the passer. It's deciding games late down the line. And in the NFL, every game matters, especially when we get late into the year when it comes to position. And these calls are going to decide games.
And again, speaking of the fans from this point, Tennessee football gets fined $100,000 and then has to replace $150,000 worth of goalposts. But the NCAA has put these fines in place to where, rushing the court or rushing the field's been discouraged. I think that ruins the atmosphere a little bit.
It does. I mean, the most popular videos, if you search up college football, the most popular videos are when the fans get excited, the fans storm the field after a big upset. It's a huge part of the culture, the atmosphere, the tradition when it comes to college football. Finding these schools that much amount of money, what good is it doing?
Because, again, you really get that first warning, and then you get the $100,000. So if Tennessee rushes the field again, they're going to have that, $250,000 fine. So do you think it's going to discourage anybody? I would like to think the answer is no, because I personally myself have rushed a field a time or two, but I think it just discourages. And again, it's something wrong with the NCAA.
I think it might discourage taking down the goalpost and throwing them in the river. But in terms of storming the field, I think that's here to stay.
Okay, and that's going to do it for the quick hitters. We'll be right back. We're going to be talking some college football, speaking of the Tennessee Volunteers. We are just about halfway through the college football season. And right now, a lot of questions more than answers. And so I got my main man, Caden Strickland, over here. Got Tim back as well. And guys, the main question on my mind, is Tennessee for real? Coming off that big 52-49 win against Alabama at Neyland Stadium. They got a little bit of a tough schedule coming up. Tim, are they for real?
So I would like to say that the argument can exist. However, I am not fully convinced yet of their possibility of being able to go to the college football playoff for a few reasons. Number one, they still got to play Georgia. Georgia's number one team in the country right now. That's an SEC East battle that's going to be difficult. If the Vols are real, they will beat Georgia. Even though Kentucky's not as high as Georgia, obviously, still a top 25 team. So they have two more really talented teams on their resume for the rest of the year. And then also, assuming all goes well, let's say they win the SEC East, most likely they will be playing Alabama again in the SEC title game. So the question will be how they do against Georgia, how they do in the rest of the East. But until then, I'm still on the fence, but I think the possibility is real.
I'm a resident Georgia fan. They've looked pretty shaky in not necessarily against Vanderbilt, but in their last couple games before that, particularly the Missouri game, they were a bit shaky, especially in the first half. If Tennessee is for real, which I think they are, sadly, I would pick Tennessee to win that game, and here's why. Hendon Hooker, in my honest opinion, has been the best quarterback in all of college football this season. He led that offense to the most points that's been scored against an Alabama team since 1907, over a century. I think Jalen Hyatt, that receiver, I think he's cemented himself as a superstar in college football. 5 touchdowns, over 200 yards against Alabama. Yeah, that's real good stuff. Obviously, these next couple games, next 3 weeks, they've got Kentucky, they've got Georgia. If they beat Georgia, that's it. They're making the college football playoff. They're for real. If they don't beat Georgia, I don't see much of a chance of them going to the playoffs.
I feel like that's agreed upon. I mean, that Georgia game pretty much determines their season, in my eyes.
Also, my hot take, Ian, follow me on Twitter. Follow 101 Sports, or follow Gray on Twitter. I said right after that Alabama win, and I'm going to hold myself to this, I said, Tennessee's going to lose to Kentucky at Neyland Stadium, because there's two very dangerous situations, and it's after an emotional loss or a triumphant victory. And they're coming off a triumphant victory. They're going to beat UT Martin. But that Kentucky game, we talk about trap games, that could be a major trap game for Tennessee that they overlook, and that could completely shoot their chances down in the SEC East. But the SEC, really the staple conference in college football, we got to say. Probably definitely the best. Who's been the worst, okay? Caden, who's been the worst Power 5 conference?
Look, you can't talk about the worst Power 5 conference without saying the Pac-12. Look, the Pac-12's got its high sticks with UCLA, USC, Oregon. They've also got, in my opinion, the worst team in all of Power 5 in Colorado. And Arizona State, they're not that much better. The conference as a whole, it's all over the place. And my biggest point, their highest ranked team, UCLA, it's the lowest ranked top team out of all the Power 5 conferences. And Colorado, I already said, I think they're the worst team. And so I don't really think you can make an argument against Pac-12.
I would have to agree that overall, I would say the Pac-12 is definitely the worst. Colorado's awful. USC has took a loss against Utah, losing 43-42 in a game that they really should have won. I was watching the game. They had a good lead the majority of the game. Overall, yes, I would agree Pac-12 is worse. But I would also make an honest argument. ACC is not much better. I would think the ACC Atlantic is a good division.
You're darn right it is.
But the Coastal is actually terrible.
Okay, I'll give you that.
The Coastal is awful. As someone who's grown up in Charlottesville, who's watched UVA games, UVA is terrible. Their rival Virginia Tech's terrible. Miami's never coming back. That's a whole division pretty much. Besides UNC runs that thing besides that, there's really nothing going on there. Now, while I think Pac-12 is running away with the winner for being the worst conference in the Power 5, I really don't think ACC is that much behind it. The fact that there's a whole division that pretty much just blows.
Yeah, I really can't make an argument against that. ACC is kind of been the crap show of
Clemson and everybody else, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. North Carolina's kind of came up in the past couple of years, but other than that, no real.
And who else? And who else?
You can't count out Wake Forest.
No, you cannot.
Nope.
And again, I might say again, you said the ACC Atlantic. It's the only division in college football in a conference that has 4 ranked teams right now: Syracuse, Wake, NC State,
And then there's the other division.
And then there's the other division. Hey, don't count out the Fighting Tony Elliott's. They have been fantastic this year. But okay, we've talked about great players. You talked about Hendon Hooker. You think he's a lock for the Heisman?
I wouldn't say lock, so to say, as of right now, but I do think that he's made a case as the favorite at this point in the season. Look, he outdueled Bryce Young. Bryce Young won the Heisman last year, and I think that might have been his Heisman moment, so to speak, so far this season. Yardage and touchdowns, they won't blow you away on the stat sheet when you look at it this year, but that's because they're blowing out most of their opponents. He's getting benched in the fourth quarter. He's second in QBR in the whole country, and he's only thrown 1 interception all year.
So I like Hooker. I think he is available in the conversation, but I still think it's not a lock yet. I would say give it another 2 weeks. But my lock is C.J. Stroud. It's probably the easy pick, but I'm going to read out these numbers here. 24 touchdowns, only 3 interceptions, almost 2,000 yards passing. He's first in the nation in touchdowns passing, and he's first in the nation in QBR. Now, you can make the argument they haven't played a lot of great teams yet. Sure, Penn State's not going to look as good now after their loss to Michigan, but they will be playing that Michigan team that's ranked in the top 4. CJ's been playing great overall all year, and he's taken out usually halfway through the third quarter. So my argument is that his number 1 receiver has been injured most of the season. So it's been a lot of wide receiver 2's been up for that wide receiver 1 position. So personally, I think with the season getting harder and how he's been playing, I think depending on how he plays the next 2 weeks, I would say it's a lock. But
I would not say lock. Like, obviously, he's been the best statistical quarterback so far this year in the nation. But who's he been playing? Rutgers, Michigan State, Notre Dame? Like, who? He hasn't played a single ranked opponent yet. Obviously, he's going to play Michigan. That's gonna be the telltale of the season. We need to see how he plays against some real competition. Hendon Hooker's already done it. He done it against Alabama, led him to a win, 52 points. Already talked about that. I just think Stroud needs to show up in a big game.
Well, I think you can't really use that argument, I feel like, as much against Stroud as the fact that it's not that he hasn't shown up in a big game, it's that the big game hasn't happened yet. It's not that he hasn't been showing up in games. I think it's just the game that he needs to show up in hasn't happened yet. But I think it's going to be happening soon, and I think there's going to be a reason why people were originally hot at him all off season and early into the season for him being a lock. Vegas thinks so.
So basically what you're saying is C.J. Stroud is waiting for the Michigan game, and Hendon Hooker, if he performs well against Georgia, he could basically have it.
He performs well against Georgia and Kentucky. He's got it. That's 3 huge games. Stroud just doesn't have that in his schedule.
Great talk, guys. We've got to throw it to the NBA, but you guys are also forgetting Sam Hartman. We talked about it last year. Sam Hartman again for the Heisman, obviously. But we're going to throw it to the NBA. What are the Lakers doing, y'all?
The NBA season is tipped off, and here at 1-1 Sports, we're ready to discuss. We're going to start off with talking about one of the biggest teams in the NBA that has a lot of expectations after underperforming last year. Let's talk about the Lakers.
The expectations are high. They'll perform higher. They are going to do so well. I'd invest so much in the team that plays in Crypto Arena.
You know, I think if they're smart, they'll just blow it all up right now. And it all starts with Russell Westbrook. Look, Westbrook's a great player. He still has a place in this league. It doesn't matter what everybody says. But it's not on the Lakers.
I can't believe you just said that.
Look,
Russell Westbrook had a bad season, averaging 18, 7, and 7.
I never said he was a bad player.
Bad season?
I never said he was a bad player. I said he does not fit on this team.
Why not?
On paper. You say he does fit. Why did they not make the playoffs last year?
They had a rough year. It happens.
I never said he. Oh, yeah, darn right they had a rough year. They didn't make the playoffs. What were they, a finals projected team?
They were. But let me ask you this. This is the best team that LeBron's had in his history, right?
Arguably.
Do you think he's going to let it go to the wayside 2 years in a row?
I think
Absolutely
they'll
not.
make the playoffs this year. The West isn't that good this year. They'll make the playoffs. Russell Westbrook does not fit on this team, and it's because of LeBron James. They both demand the ball in their hands. Russell Westbrook is not as good of a player when
You know
he
how
doesn't
they
have the
fix
ball in
that?
his hands.
Russell Westbrook's going to come off the bench. He's going to be the captain, so to speak, of that second lineup. He's going to be the sixth man of the year, mark my words.
You know, I like Westbrook coming off the bench. I don't think his personality, his ego's too big for that. Don't you agree?
I agree, but I think he calms it down. He knows he's playing with one of the GOATs of all time, and the Lakers get things done. They'll leave the LA letdowns for the Angels and the Dodgers.
Okay, we'll see.
Coming out with some fire. Well, let's move into a big award, big topic of discussion in the NBA, the MVP. Who do you have winning the MVP right now?
Y'all like hot takes?
I love me.
Definitely
a hot
Y'all
do.
like flaming hot takes? Let me give you some stats first. Since the year 2000, there have been 4 players that have averaged at least 25 points and at least 9 assists in multiple seasons. James Harden, MVP. Russell Westbrook, MVP. LeBron James, MVP.
Oh no.
Trae Young, Atlanta Hawks point guard. He did it 3 straight years. Where's he in the MVP conversation?
Exactly where he belongs. Not there. Luka Doncic is so much better than Trae Young. It's not even close. And you have the audacity to sit at this desk and say Trae Young is an MVP candidate?
Darn right I did, and I'll tell you why. Look, this dude led the league in points and assists last year.
Last year.
Yeah.
Did he win MVP last year?
He didn't. And that's because of people like you, the NBA media, who don't believe in Trae Young.
It's not that I don't believe in Trae Young. Quite frankly, I don't believe in the Hawks at all.
You don't? Why not?
Because they're not a good team. The Hawks, in an East as good as it is, Trae Young isn't even a top 5 player in that conference, let alone the whole league.
You tell me 5 players in that conference that are better than Trae.
Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid, Giannis. That's 3. I could name 2 more if I had time to think, but I'm going to keep the show rolling a little bit. Doncic is the only player that's on the Mavericks that can really score. I mean, he made Dorian Finney-Smith work as a second player, and you think that's going to change?
I honestly, I think Luka might have one of the best, if not the best, statistical seasons in the NBA this year. I don't think the Mavs win enough games.
They will, and here's why. The Mavs offense, as one-dimensional as that, a sheet of paper, they're all Doncic-driven, and Doncic is going to take over this team like he did last year.
He might, but who's there to help him?
No one, and that's
Dinwiddie?
why. That's why
Christian
Doncic is going to have so many points, so many rebounds. He can do it all. I mean, he's the new age Michael Jordan. I just said that. He is the new age Michael Jordan. He can dunk, he can pass, he can shoot. The guy can do it all. That's what an MVP is.
He can do it all, but I don't think there's enough help for him. Obviously, he's a great player, great talent. I don't think he has enough help to win enough games to be an MVP consideration.
The Mavericks are a Luka Doncic-driven organization. They are a one-man show. It is a make with Luka or a break with Luka. So far, every year I've said they go to the wayside. You know what they've done every year? Prove me wrong. You know what they'll do this year? Prove people like you wrong.
Well, I've heard new age Michael Jordan, and I've heard the Lakers should blow it up.
Might want to just cancel the segment.
We might want to see where this next topic will bring us. We are coming into possibly what could be one of the most competitive NBA seasons we've had in quite a while. It's very early in the season. Who do we see winning the finals this year?
I think the Clippers is the only right answer. I really do.
You know, I really like the Clippers, but I'm going to have to go with undoubtedly the hottest team in the league, the Boston Celtics.
They're the hottest team in the league, I'll give you that. But look at the East around them. Look at all the teams they have to play, not just in the regular season, going into the postseason. You think all that fatigue? It's going to be, really, if you look at it, they're going to go to the max in every series. I expect every series to go to 7 or 5. And then you go to the finals and you win that? Doesn't make sense.
Well, when your best team, that makes sense.
What about the Clippers? They're getting their guy back, Kawhi Leonard, coming back off an ACL tear. He's been in the lab ever since that injury. He had this team in the Western Conference Finals a year ago, let's not forget. And he's coming back to the helm.
Oh yeah, I'm not saying anything wrong about Kawhi. Kawhi is clutch. I'm saying, I don't know about all these guys around him. Paul George,
Paul George, Reggie Jackson, now John Wall, they're superstars.
Paul George is known to crack under pressure in the playoffs. He's been doing that his whole career. John Wall, you sign him. Yeah, great guy. How many games he played in the last 3-4 years?
He didn't play last year. He's well rested.
He's well rested. Is he rusty?
He might be, but this team around him is going to elevate him. This Clippers team is going to be hot. They are contenders, Caden.
Look, the Celtics since January 29th, 25-6. They're hot and they got better. They added Malcolm Brogdon this year. He's really
Caden, it's not that I'm denying the Celtics at all. They have a great team. Their talent is off the charts. The East around them, they're not even the best team in the East. I think the 76ers keep this Philly party moving. I mean,
I don't know.
the Celtics aren't going to be number one. They might not even be number two with the way Donovan Mitchell's now on the Cavaliers. It could be a real shape-up in the East, and I don't think fans are ready for it.
Well, I don't think you're ready for what the Warriors about to put on the Clippers in the conference finals.
We'll have to see. We will have to see.
That we will.
Well, that's all we got from the NBA. Let's now talk about the MLB. Next on 101 Sports.
The MLB postseason is in full swing with 4 teams reaching the ALCS, potential World Series winners all over the place. And I got Max and I got Harry here to talk about it. But guys, we talk about the 4 winners. We got to talk about some losers, okay? Biggest postseason flop, and there's a good amount of them this year, Max.
Without a doubt, the Atlanta Braves. I mean, they come into the NLDS coming back from 10.5 games to lose to a divisional opponent in the Phillies.
Yeah, I mean, I've got to agree with you there. There's been a ton of upsets this year. The Mets, Dodgers, and Braves all combined for 313 wins over the regular season and just 3 during the postseason. So there's a lot you can choose from. I'm going with the Dodgers, who set a franchise record with the most wins. I mean, they won the NL West by a landslide. They spurged on Freddie Freeman in the offseason. Everyone thought they were ready to make the big push. They were my picks for the World Series when it started. They win 1 game and
at this point, it just doesn't shock me. I mean, the Dodgers do this every year, it seems. For the Braves, like I said, you come in off that 10.5 game comeback. The Mets are out. Go fans, everyone's happy, right? And you lose to the Phillies. You win 1 game against the Phillies.
I mean, the Dodgers had a 2.8 ERA, the best ERA in baseball, down to a 3.7 ERA in the postseason. I mean, a huge drop.
I mean, the Braves came in with a sub-4 ERA too. So what's the difference?
I mean, the Dodgers they've won the NL West 9 out of 10 years, right? And they've only gotten 1 ring in all of these years that they're making the postseason, and that was during 2020. I mean, does that really count?
The thing I have with the Dodgers is they lost to the Padres, a good team, a team that's got a lot of pressure on them. Mm-hmm. The Braves lost to the Phillies. The Braves were statistically better than the Phillies in almost every category. They lost 7-6, 9-1, and 8-3. Those were the scores. I know the Phillies lineup is stacked. But like I said, sub-4 ERA to do that? Come on, Harry.
I mean, the Dodgers have the 2nd highest payroll in the MLB. I know where you're getting it with the Braves. I mean, a huge flop, but they weren't even in the. They didn't even lead the NL East until the end of the year.
But they won it, didn't they? They got the job done when they needed to, but not in the postseason.
They did win, but I just think the Dodgers flopped harder than ever. I think it's both feasible, but I think
the bad news Braves forever.
Oh,
exactly.
But I think there's something that you guys can't agree on, is that it's basically the year of the underdog. The only higher seed to win was the New York Yankees. And so basically 3 underdogs. You got to pick one. Who was the most surprising?
Definitely the Phillies. I'm going to say the Phillies because they did come into the season with the strongest lineup. And I said it since April that they had the strongest lineup. I said it since April that they would get to the World Series. Mm-hmm. They don't really shock me, but what shocked me was their performance against the Braves. Mm-hmm. They came into that series, no expectations, and blew them out.
All right, Max, but you see the Padres, they've never won a World Series. Last made the playoffs in 2020 with, again, the expanded playoffs, a shortened season. Before then was 2006. They made huge trades at the deadline, getting Juan Soto, Josh Bell, closer Josh Hader.
And that surprises you? They should be in that position.
They should be, but they haven't shown before, and then they just kind of surged. The Dodgers constantly dominated them during the regular season, and then they come out swinging in the wild card series. And then
I can't agree with you, Harry. I mean, the Braves beat 2 real World Series contenders, if you think about it. The Cardinals in their last dance with these 3 legends. Then, like I said, with the Braves, come on.
I just think the Padres I think they're set to win it all. I think the Padres are the team. I think they pull off an insane upset. They have huge years from Yu Darvish and Joe Musgrove, who I think are going to lead them. They both have sub-2 ERAs this postseason. Luis
You know what
Garcia out of
counteracts
the pen.
ERA?
What?
Lineups in baseball. You know who has
We
one
got
of the
a
best
stack
lineups
lineup.
left in the postseason? The Phillies.
The Padres.
No, the Phillies do.
You've
Kyle
got Josh
Schwarber.
Bell. You got the power. You got Juan Soto. He has a 400 on base percentage. I mean, he's sneaky good. He gets on base.
Look me in the eyes and tell me this. Did you know Kyle Schwarber had 46 home runs this year? You didn't,
Yes,
did you?
I do know
his
that.
eyes.
Because a guy named Aaron Judge only had one of the greatest seasons in MLB
Still
history.
20 behind Aaron Judge.
And
He still had 46.
Aaron Judge is still kicking, but I think you're also forgetting maybe that they're doing this without what was it, Mr. Ringworm? You know, Fernando Tatis. He's not even playing right now.
And if you had Tatis, this only furthers the point, but they were electric. As soon as they got Juan Soto, the fan base knew, the team knew, they knew that they were making the push. They knew the front office was in it.
There's one reason why they won't make the World Series and win it.
What?
Pressure.
They got the
Padres have been second fiddle to the Dodgers for 3 years now. They finally do it. You think they
Exactly.
can ride that wave?
I think
don't.
they can. They're up right now on the
They're too
Phillies
young.
as we speak.
They are too young. I will say this game does determine a lot, though.
I think that too.
So game 2, again, determines a ton about the series because the Phillies had a dominating pitching performance in game 1. But you don't think the Phillies have a ton of pressure under them because, again, they have a starving fan base. They haven't won since 2008. And, again, Philadelphia sports fans, I think we know. Shout out to Kevin Cohn. But, I mean, the Philadelphia sports fans, you don't think they're more starving than San Diego?
Absolutely not. They have no reason to be. I mean, they came in as underdogs. They're still here as underdogs. They beat, like I said, 2 of the biggest title contenders in the NL. You think they're playing with any
the
cares?
Cardinals were a walking retirement home. Come
The
on.
Cardinals had a good shot. Cardinals had some veteran talent and a lot of hope.
They had hope, and they had Albert Pujols at first base. No offense. He got the home run, 700 home runs, but he wasn't doing anything after that.
I can't believe you're hating on Pujols.
I'm sorry, I'm a realist, okay? First things first, I'm the
wrongest.
realist. No, yeah, okay. So, but also, guys, some players that we didn't really expect to dominate have been dominating in the playoffs so far. And Harry, I'm just going to go to you first again. Someone who might not have dominated in the regular season, but that postseason games turn on and a light switch goes
Yeah.
off.
I've got Trent Grisham. He has been absolutely amazing. He's hitting .333 in the playoffs, a .467 on-base percentage, and a 1.175 OPS. I mean, he did struggle during the regular season, as you say, but that's, again, why the Padres are such a good team. They've got guys who might not jump out on the stat sheet during the regular season, but he's been clutch. He hit 2 huge home runs in that wild card series against the Mets. I mean, you've just got to go with him. I think he's going to ride the Padres to the World Series past the Phillies.
A moment ago, I was listing out how good the Phillies lineup has been. Schwarber, Harper. There's one guy I left out, and I don't think either of you two nor the viewers at home can name that player. That man is Gene Segura. Segura is playing in his first ever postseason, and my God, he is making the most of it. He has 3 RBIs, 2 doubles, and is batting .333 over the course of the Phillies postseason. I mean, he is playing electric baseball right now.
I mean, he definitely is, but Trent Grisham, only 25 years old. I mean, he has the 5th highest batting average in the league entering the NLCS. I mean, he's just been outstanding, and he is really a huge reason why the Padres are even here. If he did
So
not,
is Segura.
if he did not perform the way
if-
he did,
Actually,
the
Harry,
Padres would
if
have lost to the
Segura
Mets.
wasn't on this postseason roster, for whatever reason, they would not have won Game 1 against the Cardinals in that wild card. Finding themselves down, Segura comes up with a base knock, ties it up.
I mean, you could say the same about Trent. I mean, he great
really.
plays in the outfield. I mean, phenomenal clutch hits. I mean, he's a role player that deepens their lineup, and I just think he's the man.
When the lights shine, the stars shine brighter, and I gotta say, Segura's been shining pretty bright.
But also, guys, I think we're ignoring an elephant in the room here. The New York Mets. Meet the
I
Mets.
mentioned them. They blew a 10.5 game lead to give the Braves life. And what did the Braves do with that life?
Guys, can you hear the audible
I don't
Sam
know.
Landsman groan
I
behind
don't know
the camera?
how you lose a best-of-3 series with Jacob deGrom and Max Scherzer as your top 2. I mean, the Mets choked. I mean, I think that's all.
Mets
But don't
didn't
they?
show.
But don't they always do that?
Mets
though?
meted.
The Mets meted.
Mets made it.
Oh gosh, but well, great talking to these guys about the MLB. We'll be right back here on 101 Sports. Thanks for watching another edition of 101 Sports.
And make sure to follow us on Instagram, Twitter, and subscribe to us on YouTube.
And as always, whose side
Are
you
you
on? Here, see if I can hit it.